am Mary McKee and I am a member of the Innes Flower and Garden Club. IFA, the Association of Irish Floral Artists, have asked us to do a teaching demonstration this evening, to do a class to incorporate a craft item. The title for the evening is Inspired By. Now this was a lovely title. You could have done many different items. I chose to do decoupage. Decoupage means cutouts. It is the art of decorating an object with coloured cutouts in combination with paint effects. It is thought to have originated in Siberia, where people decorated the tombs of their deceased with felt material. Then by the 12th century it had come to China, and they used paper cutouts to decorate lanterns and window boxes. By the 17th century it had arrived in France, and they were so inspired they used it to decorate bookcases, cabinets and objects of furniture. The Art Deco designer French Michel Frank used decoupage to decorate his Parsum tables. By the 1960s it had come to the United States, and they used it to decorate pots, trays, boxes, lampshades, waste baskets, many other things. Now how I got into it was, we have a craft class in our village at home, and we had a Dutch teacher who introduced us to decoupage and the world of paper napkins. Now this is what enthused me, and I loved the class on the night, and I thought, how would I bring this into my floral art as well? There were so many paper napkins, not all you could use, but some you can. So this is what I'm going to teach you tonight. To do decoupage you need whatever you're going to do, a bowl, a pot, a box, whatever. You will need applique glue. A Mod Podge glue is one of the companies, or a decoupage glue, they're both the same for gluing on the thing. Your paper napkin, you will need paint brushes to apply your glue and your paints, some acrylic paints to get your colour effects. You will need varnish to seal it, plus you will need a dauber for putting on your paints. I will explain as we go along. And you will need cling film, and this probably would be handy to have. Now I'm using a pot tonight, and whatever you use, you have to paint it with white emulsion. You may have to put on 2 layers because it depends on how dark the pot is beforehand to get the effect. If you don't do this, your paper napkin will not show, the pattern will not show up on your thing, on your object. Then when you have that done and it's dry, you can proceed to get your napkin ready. Now I have used a landscape napkin here tonight. I could have used many other ones, but I thought this would be more suitable for the time of year. You have to take off the back layer, the packed tissues. Now in all napkins there are 3 layers of tissue. You have to make sure that you take off 2 of them. I got one off in this one. The second one was a bit stubborn, so you have to make sure that you have to get off. Sometimes people think when they have it pulled off that that's it, but you have to make sure that you have the 2. If you're having a bit of difficulty to lift it, you can get a pin and just put it under it at the ends there, and you'll eventually get it to rise and you can get it off. Then when you have that off, you just, if you have chosen to do maybe this section, in a lot of the paper napkins you have 4 designs. As it is in this, I have just 2. You tear it off. Now rather than cutting it, it's recommended you tear it to get a more natural effect, as if you were painting the design on the pot afterwards. You need this natural design. So just tear it down, and the same at the core for the straight edges, nip off bits to have them ready, and just measure them to see will it fit in your design. And this makes it much more natural than straight effect. And I just checked it. It fits on. It's just slightly bit small, or a bit too big. I'll just take off another little bit here. Now, then you prepare your surface. So I'm using this Mod Podge glue tonight, which is a glue that is nice and sticky, and I'm going to apply it with a paintbrush. And you can just put it on about the size of your picture. You needn't have too much, just enough. On there. And I'll just lay it down. And I'll apply. Now this is where you've got to be careful. You put it on, a lot of people just dab it on and forget about it, and then end up in trouble. At this stage I just put it on lightly like that, and I will get my cling film, which I've already pulled out here. I will put it on like so, and you start from the centre and you work out, and you have to do that because you'll have bubbles and airlocks in it, and you just have to iron them out. Now it's good to have the cling film because it stops you digging your hands into it, or maybe it fraying, because once the paper gets wet, it gets very soft and it can tear, and then you just lift off and you do the same at the other side like so. Now I can just take off a little bit more of that one, and we'll paint that surface as well. So really the hardest part of that is this bit, just to be careful. And you apply again lightly. And just take that off because it's already has a bit of glue on it. And you just leave it down like that and just iron out. It's a bit like wallpaper years ago when we were putting it on, that you start at the centre and you work out so that you will have no creases or no air bubbles, and it just goes on nicely. And just take it off then. Now when you have that done, you put another layer of your Mod Podge back on it and paint all out. This seals it and it will dry. It takes about an hour, maybe longer. You can apply the second coat if you want. And you leave to dry. And when it's dry, it's then you'll have to just get back on before I spill it. Now, when you're finished and when it's dry, sometimes people leave it the white. It depends. Personally, on this, sometimes it's a bit harsh, I think, to leave it white. I would take a background colour and put it here, maybe a very light shade of green, or some of the blues or something, just very lightly, so to make the picture picture stands out very much with the white, but if you want it to blend back and not be too dominant, and especially with floral art, it can't be too dominant, so we will get it to blend back. I use this sage green and olive green a lot. I use greys a good bit as well, just to tone down the background. You can use creams as well. Now I leave that to dry, and we will go on to do the landscape that I do. So I just clear off all this. And I'm going to use now I have already a box here to do my landscape design. Now I believe in recycling whatever I can. This is a Satsuma box that we got at Christmas time, and I've used my landscape design on it. I've done the very same application, put on and left. In this case I didn't need to do any paint effects, it just covered right around. It's leaking. And this is my design. To prevent it from being too heavy, I have glued leads to the end of it to raise it off, and not that it won't look visually too heavy. I have my flowers now. Now, for this design I am just using material from the garden, and I'm starting off with the contorted hazel or Corals Avellana contorted. I have had to push sticks on the end of it so to anchor it into the oasis, and because it's of it being such an irregular piece, it wouldn't sit properly, so I put 3 decoupage sticks on the bottom and get it to sit properly. And this design is an asymmetrical design, typical of what you would use in landscapes. And the top main part is usually 1.5 times the height, or the height of your width of the design. Now, just to pick which one I would use to go out. Don't know which one is the best. This maybe. And I'll bring my width out this way. I'm lucky there are 2 little holes in the side of the box which allows you to bring it out. And I like this at this time of the year for the catkins, and I think it's suitable for the spring design. I'm bringing some to the back to create depth and bring your eye back in the design. And again, this is probably in the way now, a small little bit in. I need to bring some, maybe there's too much, maybe out to the side here, again to create. In an asymmetrical design, you have a heavier side, which is in the first third, and a lighter side, which is in the 2 thirds, and this creates balance. it out to the front. So. No, I prefer that back near now, I think. So I use this to the front. And since I brought this in, it has really opened when I conditioned it. So this is my asymmetrical design. Now I am introducing some leaves now, and I'm using the Aromatacum. Now I have put them in a bunch just to keep them in my box, and I have conditioned them very well before we put them in the box, because they are very used to the cold conditions, and when you take them in they suffer from the heat, so we have acclimatized them in buckets of water overnight, or maybe even a day. Yeah, I can put the in there. I love this leaf, and again it has the lovely green marbling. Put it down below her, and I just bring a bit of it to the other side, carry it through. So this is, and a little bit into the back, just to bring her overall, and balance it out. Now, as at this time of the year, you wouldn't have much flowers, so, and I cannot get flowers because I'm too within the 5k. I cannot go any further for flowers, so I went to the garden to see what I could use, maybe just for a small bit of colour to bring up from the design on the box. And I have got these. Now you won't recognise them the way I have them now, but if I show you that, you will recognise it. It's Mahonia Charity, but I got the idea that I would strip them down and they would do me for the bit of colour that I need. And I just put in a little bit in. There. It's amazing what you get in the garden that you didn't know you had, and when you can't have flowers, what you can do. And this is how I made the flowers smaller. Just cut them right down so that I don't have them. They were too big for the scale of this design, and they would have thrown it off balance altogether. So I just pared them down, and the beauty about the Mahonia, it keeps opening away as it goes along. And the scent I had in the kitchen was amazing. It appears simple to do this, but when you have nothing else, you have to do it. And I'll just bring a small little bit back to the back. Now, I use some of the hedra, and this is the Orny Common Ivy from the hedge. And again, I have them brought in and conditioned. Just again, what you might find in a woodland scene or the end of a garden scene. And it helps with the decoupage, or the design that I picked. That is the challenge with the napkins. It's not everything you can use in our floral art. I mean, there are lots of different pots you can do, but they would probably take from your overall design if you use them, or you'd be down pointed for them being dominant. Just leave that up there. Now I have got some ferns as well. Now these are the wild fern. I'm lucky enough, they're growing on the wall across the road, and I love them at this time of the year. Even from November onwards, they have a beautiful back as well as a front, and I'm going to use them from the front as well as the back, because they're picking up the orange colouring which is coming through on the design. Again, some of them were very big, and I had to go for the small ones because the big ones wouldn't have suited the scale of this. And I'm going to bring some out here as well. Just to soften up that, and maybe some to this side. And leave it on our leg. Now, in the fact it's a spring design or a woodland design, I don't need a lot, just a little bit. I have got some of the heather, because there is heather, or there is that colouring on my paper, and I wanted to pick it up. So I have brought some heathers in from the garden again, and I'm going to bring some out here to pick it up on from the design. Just little pockets of it. And a little bit to this side just to bring a bit. As I said, it's amazing what you find in the gardens. You mightn't look at it another time, but just because we can't go for outside our thing, and our local supermarkets haven't a great supply. Now we can't have a design without having some moss. So I've got lovely moss that I peeled off the wall across the road, and this will give me my nice woodland effect. And I also have ivy seed heads, which again are lovely this time of the year. I have taken off the leaves of them because I thought they were a bit fussy in the design, and I felt I had enough in it as it was. So I chose to take them off. And they again bring another texture to the design. Oops. Just another few there now, and I'm not going to put too much more in it, because I think less is more in this case. Oops. Maybe a few of these here. And I would like to enclose and just put in another little bit to give it the inclusion of space in the design, and maybe a place that you feel you might. There is my asymmetrical design for the night. Take away my box and I put it out here. Now I have another design. Done to depict just the different things, again going back to the decoupage. This is another decoupage that I had, and it's a very blush rose type of colour, very insignificant in ways, but very much of our time now, because we have blush pinks and we have rose golds. So I thought I would use that, and I have introduced a paint effect that I picked from out of the picture to put on the sides where it did not meet. Now to get the paint, the acrylic paints, you have got to mix them, and I had white and I think it was a copper colour to bring up this effect. And when you are painting, which I didn't mention, you can paint it on, but you use your dauber then, and you sort of blend it to give it, because sometimes you can see the stripes or the paint, the thing of your paintbrush on the paint. So use the sponge. If you don't have a sponge, cut off a bit of your house sponge or kitchen sponge and just dab it, and it gives a lovely even effect, and it brings up your colours. So I thought this would be a nice insignificant, while it's a lovely napkin, but it's not in your face and it's not dominant. So I just brought the colours up from it. Now these roses are not really the colour I wanted, but as I cannot get them, I'll just have the shade of them. I have also put a little bit of the napkin onto the candle, just to bring it up onto it and incorporate it into it as well. And I have put white of the viburnum then to bring the candle back out. Some ferns, some hedra, some skimmia, some put pittosporum tom, and that is again just how you can use decoupage thing without it being dominant. Now I'll just put that there, and I have another one just again to say, just to show. I'll move this in a minute. This is a lovely, I don't know where you can see it, you'd need to be close up to it. It's a vegetable one, and it's asparagus that's tied up, so I thought this might be nice to use. It's again very plain, simple, not in your face, but yet a lovely tissue paper. So I've put that on, and I have used a blend of green and cream here in between, and I've brought the colours up through, and I have used the theme of the asparagus brought up as well, and maybe herbs and your veg. So I have the asparagus, I have kale, I have bay, I have fennel, I have leeks, and I have rosemary, just again to make a nice design. And it is your green and white. If you had green, maybe green Prado carnations later on the time, or some green hellebores, mine are not quite out yet, ready enough to put in, so I left them out. So now ladies, this is a sample of what you can have with decoupage without it being overtaking your containers or your pots. So thank you all very much for this evening.